Now, for many of you that have been listening to K-pop for a while, you probably know who the popular people in K-pop are here in Korea today. You just look at the Melon Music charts, you just look at Bugs, or you just look at any other Korean music chart to find out, well, who's the most popular based on the rankings and their sales. Now, what if I told you that's actually a myth, that sales alone don't judge who's the most popular here in Korea? Now, I know a lot of you guys might be like, oh my god, that's heresy, because sales dictate who makes the most money. And yes, you have a point. High sales are always a good thing. Like, when is the last time a group disbanded just because they had high sales? Very rarely. But sales alone doesn't dictate what's popular in Korea. So for my litmus test, instead of using how much an artist sells and looking at like a Korean music chart, instead I judge a group's popularity by one question and one question alone. Does the average non-K-pop Korean know who your group is? Now, if I were to walk down the street here in Korea and ask a random person if they knew who TWICE was, a lot of them would probably say yes. And that's because TWICE is the #1 most popular group here in Korea. And you can see them everywhere, from TV commercials, subway commercials, advertisements, Inkigayo, Music Bank, and all the other Korean shows. So to put this another way, if a K-pop group is popular, they should be able to transcend outside of K-pop itself. Now, let me explain. Now, a lot of you guys might not be sports fans, but you guys know who Michael Jordan is, or LeBron James, or Kobe Bryant. They're all famous basketball players, Hall of Famers. Same thing with American football. You might not like American football, but you probably know who Tom Brady is. Or if you watch soccer or football, you probably know who Lionel Messi is. And if you guys like Western music, you probably know who Bruno Mars, Beyonce, and Adele are. And that's no coincidence. They are all world famous celebrities. Same thing with Korea. The average mainstream person, especially as they get older, doesn't listen to mainstream K-pop. So even if they don't listen to K-pop, if they heard of a group such as TWICE, then that group is pretty transcendent. And I'm sure that aligns with your guys' experiences as well, where you might not know a certain singer at first, but as soon as you see them over and over and over again, you're like, oh, why didn't I know about this singer before? And it's the same thing with K-pop. So that brings me up to my big point. The average Korean's gonna know who they see the most. They don't care about sales numbers like a lot of hardcore K-pop fans, or they don't care about views on YouTube or Navercast. And Navercast, if you guys don't know, is the platform that most Koreans watch their videos, not YouTube. They don't really care about those vanity measures such as who sold more or views. The average person just thinks, have I seen this group before? And what song have I heard from them before? Does it have a catchy hook? So recognizability by the average person is the #1 key if a group is popular, not sales. And again, I know that's like busting people's myths, because a lot of K-pop fans will just purely base it off numbers and say, well, this group sold this much copies and that group didn't sell as many copies, therefore this group is more popular than this group. That's very much a myth. There's been groups that sell a lot, which is good, but they're not really recognized as being a top star here in Korea anymore. Now, one of the big examples, and I really hate to say this, is Girls' Generation. Now, you might be thinking, really? Girls' Generation? Did you see their sales numbers last year? Did you see their views on their videos last year? Take a look at this chart, you'll say. They outsold every other girl group by a wide margin. And take a look at their most recent 2015 videos. You have Lionheart that has over 66 million views on YouTube, and you have Party, which has over 72 million views. But Girls' Generation is the perfect example of getting caught into that numbers trap, where you look at the sheer raw numbers of sales and views and say, they must be popular. What is this guy talking about? And unfortunately, it pains me to say this as a Girls' Generation fan myself, they're not as popular as they once were before. Just this past year, I've talked to many middle school students, high school students, university students, and adults on who the most popular groups are. And Girls' Generation really doesn't come into that discussion, unfortunately. And to add on to that point, one of my friends who works as an English teacher here in Seoul told me that her students emulate TWICE's choreography all the time, copy i.o.i's moves all the time, but never has copied Girls' Generation moves in the past couple of years. And also talking to people that work in the K-pop industry who also admit that Girls' Generation just doesn't have that same pull that they once did. Now, if you told me that Girls' Generation was popular from 2009 to 2013 and used numbers to back it up, I would support your claim and say, yes, living in Korea during those times, yeah, Girls' Generation was big back in the day. I'll even take it a step further and say, if there was a K-pop Hall of Fame, Girls' Generation would be a first ballot choice, slam dunk, no questions asked. Girls' Generation was that influential from 2009 to 2013. Anytime Girls' Generation had a new music video or had a fan meeting, people would just stop what they did and go watch that music video or go to that fan site. That's how influential Girls' Generation was. But now, they just don't have that same pull. I would rank Girls' Generation's probably the 6th or 7th most popular girl group here in Korea. Most people these days pay more attention to TWICE, i.o.i, Blackpink, Girlfriend, Red Velvet, and a couple others. You have a lot of So1 fans that maybe buy multiple copies of Girls' Generation CDs and boost their sales numbers. but people don't recognize them anymore. People don't see them on ads. People don't see them on TV anymore. I'm not trying to pick on Girls' Generation. I really am not. It's just Girls' Generation is pretty much just the best example that I can bring that numbers do not equate to a group's popularity, because here in Korea, they're just not as popular as they once were when they were the queens of K-pop. I would actually argue that Girls' Generation is actually more relevant these days as being solo singers or actors than they are as a group, such as Taeyeon's or Tiffany's solo albums. And Taeyeon especially has been getting more and more popular straight up as a solo singer. I know some people are still not going to believe me, are still going to tell me that Girls' Generation is still a top tier group based off the numbers, based off the feel, just based off talking to people here. I just have to disagree. For K-pop, only a select few groups hit that status where people know who your group is on a mainstream level. So I hope that breaks down the myth of who's popular here in Korea. Just don't look at the music charts alone, because although sales are good and always having a profitable group is good, it's not the number one thing that most people look at. So if you guys enjoyed this video and want to learn more about in-depth K-pop, please hit the subscribe button. And if you guys want our upcoming free ebook on K-pop journalism, please join our email list below. And until next time, we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy, guys.